The Harris campaign is bringing out the closers this weekend, the Obamas. Former First Lady Michelle Obama is speaking at a rally in Norristown, Pennsylvania tonight, and former President Barack Obama will be on the trail in Milwaukee tomorrow. But joining me right now is Valerie Jarrett, former senior advisor to President Barack Obama. She's the board chair of Civic Nation. Valerie, as always, thank you very much for coming to the Saturday show. So listen, you of all people know that the Obamas are very reticent about getting out there and speaking on a whole host of issues. So when they do come out and speak on an issue, particularly during a campaign such as this, it's, to me anyway, freighted with meaning and importance. Why do you think President Obama has been out there on the campaign trail as much as he has been, and former First Lady Michelle Obama is going to be out there tonight in the last hours of this 2024 presidential campaign?
Well, first of all, good evening, Jonathan. It's always a pleasure to be with you. I am here in my individual capacity, not in the capacity as chair of Civic Nation, since it's a not-for-profit. And I'm here clearly speaking on behalf of Vice President Harris and why I think she should be the next president. And I think, look, President Obama was president for 8 years. Michelle Obama was the first lady for the same period of time. They have a keen appreciation for what it takes to be president of the United States, and they think that absolutely Vice President Harris is the right person for this job. And so it is important to get out. This is an election with very high stakes. You heard from Mitch the contrast between the two candidates. And so I think both of the Obamas want to take their message directly to the American people. We saw them this summer at the Democratic Convention. The electricity around their speeches was unprecedented. And so bringing that incredible enthusiasm to the campaign trail when we only have 3 days left. And look, millions of Americans have voted, but I'm looking right at you, for those of you who haven't, across the political spectrum. I will say to you unequivocally that our country needs to move forward, not backwards. And the rhetoric that we've heard in the last few days is a consistent reminder of what we've seen since President Trump first hit the stage when he came down that escalator. And so if you want to turn the page, if you want to move forward, if you're a woman or you love a woman and you think she's perfectly capable of taking care of herself, particularly when it comes to her body, then Vice President Harris is the person for you.
You know, I played a moment ago for Mitch Landrieu the sound of Donald Trump talking about, I will protect our women. We've been talking for days now about his talking about Congresswoman Liz Cheney, and you know she should be shot at with rifles. He has doubled down, tripled down on that kind of rhetoric. Just broadly speaking, Valerie, what does it do to American political discourse to have someone in a leadership position, a former president and someone who could be president again, speaking that way in general, but speaking that way about fellow Americans in such hateful ways?
Well, it's not what I think our country should be all about. And it's not the message that Vice President Harris is resonating across this country. Look, women don't want to be in Handmaid's Tale or Mad Men. We're not going back to that. I don't need anybody to take care of me. I can take care of myself. And to use politics as a way to kind of attack people who might have a different view, that might not want to support you, that's not what a democracy is all about. Democracy is about go out there and have a conversation on the issues, discuss those, and let the Americans choose between the two, and then whoever wins governs. And the thought that you would take this opportunity to attack somebody in those kinds of vile ways simply because they don't support you. And not only that, but once you're elected, don't you want somebody who has a to-do list for you that's all about you and not articulating this clear intent to go after his enemies? That's not what public service is all about.
You know, one of the accomplishments of the Obama administration is the passage of the Affordable Care Act, otherwise known as Obamacare. The Republican Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, well, listen to what he had to say about the ACA, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
We want to take a blowtorch to the regulatory state.
No Obamacare?
No Obamacare. Yeah, the ACA is so deeply ingrained. We need massive reform to make this work, and we got a lot of ideas on how to do that.
So, Valerie, we have less than a minute left. But what do you make of that? I mean, Roe v. Wade was overturned, so nearly 50 years of reproductive rights were taken away. How concerned should the American people be that a right to health care that's been granted by the Affordable Care Act could be taken away if there's a Republican in the White House and the Republicans maintain control of the House?
Well, Speaker Johnson's correct. It is ingrained, and it's ingrained because the American people are benefiting from the Affordable Care Act. Jonathan, it passed 15 years ago. And for 15 years, we've been hearing the Republicans saying, well, we have a lot of ideas, haven't heard one. We have a concept of a plan, haven't heard one. Why? Because it is the law and it is helping hundreds of millions of Americans. And so rather than saying you want to dismantle it, try to embrace it. Make it better if you can, but don't say you're going to take a blowtorch to something that is benefiting so many Americans, 120 million plus who have pre-existing conditions, people who have insurance now, tens of millions who didn't have insurance before, women who get preventive care, young people who can stay on their plans and parents' plans until they're 26, reducing the cost of prescription drugs. Why would you want to take that away?
I take that as a rhetorical question. Valerie Jarrett, as always, thank you very much for coming to the Saturday Show.
Vote, 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 everybody.
You heard what the lady said.